Hello. Today we're featuring my big zit, but we're going to keep it moving. Today we're going to recap season 18, episode 2 of The Real Housewives of Orange County. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So the episode opens up with a fight about the lawsuit between Shannon and Alexis ending, and the girls talking about it with each other. So they're all at this like Heather's luncheon thing, and so they're watching Alexis and Shannon fight through the window, and then they all, of course, talk about it after. Tamara says when she heard the news about Alexis dating John, she felt bad for Shannon, but Shannon says Tamara was liking and commenting on the announcement post that Alexis did on Instagram. Shade Queen. Jen tells new girl Katie that she got evicted from her house, so she spills the tea to the new girl Katie. Gina talks to Heather and Tamara about Jen's eviction and how pissed she is because it's going to affect her professional life. So Gina just got into real estate, and so she is really trying to build up her business, and she's worried about her reputation. And she, I guess, got Jen into the house. I think they talk about it later on in the season, but got her into the house without like credit checks and things like that. And this is kind of blowing up in her face. So she's really pissed about it. Alexis is telling the girls about how Johnny J and her got together, and Shannon excuses herself. Tamra goes after her, and they have an argument about their friendship in the hall, telling each other that they have big egos. So they're basically like an ego off, saying, not listening to each other, of course, just fighting in the hallway of this like luncheon thing. Gina talks about how she loves being a real estate agent and how she has found her lane. So they show her showing some houses, and she talks about how she's really found like her passion. I think that's why she's so upset about the whole eviction thing, because she really wants to protect this new aspect of her life. Katie, Shannon, and Jen go for a walk on the beach. Katie talks about how she has met Heather at a holiday party before, Sutton's holiday party, and she has never acknowledged her until she got cast on the show. I think she talked about this at the beginning of the luncheon with Heather, because they like, oh hi, whatever, blah blah blah, and that's, she said that on in her interview, that Heather had never acknowledged her before until she got cast on Real Housewives of Orange County, which, shade. Shannon says she doesn't know where she stands with Heather and spills the tea that Tamara has been talking crap about Heather, which is very interesting. I think a lot of the girls used to be, I don't know if they still are, but they're scared of Heather because she's very like powerful in Orange County and LA. But I think that they're all kind of getting their own power now that they're getting really famous. So I think they're less scared of Heather. But it's still interesting to hear that Tamara's talking crap about Heather. Gina talks to Emily about the whole Jen eviction situation and how it's affecting her real estate career. So again, we're talking about this. I think this is going to be a huge storyline. This and Shannon's DUI are going to be the two main storylines because they keep talking about it. Jen talks about how Ryan doesn't really work. She says that he just kind of like plays in the sun all day, which I think comes in later on because there's this huge like lawsuit with like gambling and things, if I remember correctly, that's going to come up later. So I think that that's why that's important, and they're kind of setting that storyline. Katie talks about her upbringing and how she always felt left out because she was adopted by a white family. So then they show the family picture, and so she talks about how she never really fit in anywhere. So I thought that was interesting, and I think they're kind of developing her character story. Shannon apologizes to Gina for giving her a hard time about her DUI in the past. She seems really upset about this, obviously, because it's happening to her now, so she's really remorseful that she gave Gina such a hard time. When Gina had her DUI, Shannon like made a big deal out of it, and like Shannon was like helping Gina and then said that Child Protective Services were going to come and get her kids or something. Like it was a whole thing. So of course now Shannon feels remorseful because it's happening to her. Tamara talks about how Eddie wants to move to Big Bear full time, and she doesn't know if she is ready for that pace of life. She talks about how Orange County is nice and fast paced. I'm sure because she's in the spotlight and she's doing all these appearances and things like that. But Eddie, they closed down their gym, their Cut Fitness gym. And so I think he's kind of bored and just wants to move to the mountains and be a mountain man. And she's like, hold on, like I have this whole other life, but she says that it is relaxing up in Big Bear. I get it. I need a little bit of a mixture of both, you know. Tamara then talks about how she thinks Shannon has a drinking problem and doesn't want to be friends with her because it's too much drama. So this is very interesting. She's talking to Eddie in this clip when they're out having lunch. I think they were riding their bike, their motorcycle. And so she's talking to Eddie about like, Shannon's too much. She doesn't want to be friends with her. She has a drinking problem. She doesn't stand behind the drinking problem, you know, being holier than thou. Typical Tamara. Eddie then talks about how he doesn't like Ryan, Jen's boyfriend. So they're talking a little bit of crap about Ryan, Jen's boyfriend. Again, I think this comes up later in the season with his legal troubles. Jen talks about how her and her kids are adjusting to new life at Ryan's and that they are tiptoeing a little bit. Yeah, I would imagine that you'd be tiptoeing. You're moving your 3 or 4 kids into your boyfriend's house. So that's got to be a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. It seems on camera like Ryan's handling it very well, but yeah, I feel like it's got to be a huge adjustment for him being a bachelor living in this big house by himself and then bringing this whole family into it. Jen has an emotional moment with her father about him still having to take care of her financially at 46. So she feels really remorseful that she like hasn't made better decisions, I think. And so she's in the kitchen with her father and crying and saying like, thank you so much for like helping me out and saving me after my divorce. So it was kind of a touching moment. Shannon and Heather have dinner and talk about Heather's loyalty to Alexis. Heather says she's talked a lot more to Alexis lately than Shannon, and that's why she's kind of being a little bit more on Alexis's side or like not really shunning Alexis. And so, I mean, I get it. If Shannon isn't being a good friend off camera, then why would Heather stick up for her if she's becoming better friends with Alexis? Makes sense to me. Heather and Shannon say they're going to take their friendship one day at a time and see where it goes. So they're going to try to rebuild their friendship. I don't really remember if they had like a fight or something. I think it's just maybe more of like Heather doesn't feel like Shannon's treating her like a friend off camera. So anyway, so they say that they're going to like try to rebuild their friendship. Katie, Gina, and Emily talk about Jen's eviction and her moving in with Ryan. So they all go out to this like luncheon or appetizer thing out by the beach. And they're all kind of talking crap about Jen and her decisions. Of course, it's Housewives, so they're gonna be catty. Then Jen and Gina meet up for coffee. They quickly get into an argument about the eviction situation, and Gina storms out. So they're both kind of screaming at each other, like they're not, again, listening to each other's point of view. Gina's really upset about the situation. Jen's like, well, why aren't you supporting me? And so then the episode closes. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this recap helped you catch up or get into Housewives, whatever it may be. I will link below a playlist to all of the other episodes in the season, and hit that subscribe button to check out all of my other recap videos. Thank you so much for joining me again, and I will check you on the next one.